Thank you, Senator Cassidy. You know, we just came back, as we all know, from the Memorial Day recess, and I wanted today to not only reflect on that, but also reflect on our anniversary of D-Day and the day that our allies invaded France in 1944. And in doing so today, Mr. President, I'd like to speak and pay tribute to all of those, including but not limited to Americans, but especially Americans who risked their lives to defend our freedoms. And in particular, Mr. President, I come today to recognize a special group of dedicated soldiers. You probably haven't heard of them, but they're referred to as the Ghost Army. The Ghost Army. This is a unit that served in World War II. It was comprised of the 23rd Special Headquarters Troops and the 3133rd Signal Service Company. The personnel of this U.S. Army unit were handpicked. They were handpicked for their artistic and creative characteristics, and you'll see why, Mr. President, in just a moment. They handled top secret information, and they were among some of America's most promising artists, engineers, and signals professionals. And their mission, the Ghost Army, their mission was very simple: fool Adolf Hitler. Fool Adolf Hitler using what was called tactical deception. The Ghost Army's deceptive creation of fake battles, inflatable tanks, theatrical props, and other inventive equipment falsified troop movements and had our enemies chasing ghosts, hence the name, the Ghost Army. Beginning in Normandy 2 weeks after D-Day and ending in the Rhine River Valley, the Ghost Army, Mr. President, staged over 20 fake battles, fake battlefield deceptions. The German army didn't know whether they were coming or going, thanks to the Ghost Army. These performances, of course, were illusions. They were called illusions by the soldiers, and they occurred in the most dangerous spot in the war, on the front line of battle. Now, without the Ghost Army's dedication and fearless perseverance, Allied successes at the Battle of the Bulge and the final battles in Po Valley, Italy, would not have been possible. The 23rd Unit was composed of only 1,184 men, 1,200 men. They put themselves at risk every day at the forefront of danger, and they fought tirelessly. They used ingenious, innovative methods to mislead the enemy, ultimately leading the Allies to many victories in Europe. Because of their bravery, because of the bravery of the 1,200 men in the Ghost Army, up to 30,000 American soldiers and 10,000 German soldiers were able to return home alive. So why are we waiting until today to honor these 1,184 brave Americans? Because until recently, the Ghost Army's mission was classified. It was top secret. Nobody except the members of the Ghost Army knew anything about it. And this has finally changed. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here today, Mr. President. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of the Ghost Army Soldier Bill, a bipartisan effort led by Senators Markey, Collins, and King, and this long overdue legislation will award a Congressional Gold Medal to the 23rd Special Headquarters Troops and the 3133rd Signal Service Company. It's a privilege, Mr. President, to share in that in my home state of Louisiana, the Ghost Army is being recognized at the New Orleans Museum of Art. Soldiers' art is on display, depicting many watercolor portraits as well as graphite portraits of civilians, soldiers, refugees during World War II. It's a legacy that our great state now gets to honor. And specifically, Mr. President, I want to recognize 6 brave men from Louisiana, my state, who were members of the Ghost Army. Hilton Howell Rayleigh of New Orleans, prominent journalist, the author of Touched with Madness. He recruited several of the hand-picked 23rd. Mr. Rayleigh trained and deployed the 3133rd Signal Service Company, which served in Italy. Also, Mr. Murphy P. Martin of St. Martinville, Louisiana. Mr. Thomas L. Raggio of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Mr. Roy L. Ravia of Calcasieu Parish in my state. Mr. Alvin J. Picard of Vermilion Parish. And last, but certainly not least, Mr. Anderson B. Wilson of Slidell, Louisiana. Unfortunately, Mr. Wilson is the only Ghost Army soldier still alive in Louisiana. I had the rare privilege and the rare honor of speaking with Mr. Wilson this morning. In December of 1943, President Roosevelt authorized the Ghost Army unit. Only 2 weeks later, in January 1944, Mr. Wilson was on his way to Camp McMorris, Tennessee, to join the Ghost Army. Who says the federal government can't move quickly when it wants to? Mr. Wilson trained there until May, when his unit was shipped out of New York to Liverpool, England. It was the largest convoy that at the time had ever crossed the Atlantic Ocean. From there, Mr. Wilson and his team traveled more than any other unit. From England, they went to France, they went to Belgium, they went to Holland, they went to Luxembourg, and they went to Germany. Mr. Wilson and his comrades fought fearlessly through the war's end, members of the Ghost Army. In July 1945, Mr. Wilson finally came home. However, while he came home safely, he couldn't even disclose, he couldn't even talk about, even to his own family, the honorable service unit that he was a part of. Now that's humbling to me, to hear a man sacrifice, to go through what he went through and not even be able to talk about it to his family. But he kept his word out of honor to his country. The willingness of Mr. Wilson and his fellow soldiers to risk their own lives to defend the freedom we have today, well, it too is humbling. Mr. Wilson returned home in 1945, and I hope he's listening right now. He's been a little under the weather. He was in the hospital when I spoke to him today. It wasn't until the 1990s, when Mr. Wilson was married with 2 grown children, that he could ever talk about his service to this great country, to share his stories, to share his experiences, to share his fight, to keep the freedoms that all of us take for granted every day. Mr. Wilson's story only gives a snapshot of the sacrifices and honorable work that these men of the Ghost Army gave to the Allied forces' victory. And I, for one, and I know all Americans join me in thanking them for their service and for the freedoms that they protected. I am proud of this Ghost Army legislation, and I hope to see it move forward and pass so that these fine Americans can receive the recognition, Mr. President, that they have long deserved. God bless the members of the Ghost Army, and if you're listening, Mr. Wilson, God bless you.